I was lying in my hospital bed, tubes running from my arms, my body so weak I could barely lift my head, when the doctor walked in with a police officer and said, "Mrs. Helen Brennan, we've run extensive toxicology tests and we found dangerous levels of arsenic in your blood. This wasn't an illness. Someone has been poisoning you systematically for months, and we need to know who has access to your food and medications." My mind immediately went to my daughter-in-law, Caroline, the woman who'd been bringing me homemade meals 3 times a week for the past 6 months, the woman who insisted on managing my medications, the woman who'd convinced my son Peter that I was getting too old to live alone and needed constant supervision, the woman who stood to inherit my house, worth over $800,000 if I died before changing my will, and I felt my entire world collapse as I realized that the person who'd been pretending to care for me had actually been slowly killing me. My name is Helen Brennan. I'm 71 years old, and I need to tell you how I almost died at the hands of someone I trusted, how I missed all the warning signs because I was so desperate to believe my son had married a good woman, and how sometimes the people who smile the brightest are hiding the darkest intentions. Let me take you back 10 months so you understand how this nightmare began, how a lonely widow got manipulated by a woman who saw me not as family, but as an obstacle to be eliminated. My husband Robert died 4 years ago from complications of diabetes, and his death left me devastated and alone in the large house we'd shared for 43 years in suburban Connecticut. We'd raised our only child, Peter, in that house, watched him grow from a boy into a man, celebrated every milestone within those walls. The house was filled with memories, with Robert's presence in every room, and even though it was too big for one person and too expensive to maintain on my teacher's pension, I couldn't imagine leaving it because leaving felt like abandoning the last pieces of Robert. Peter had always been a devoted son, calling me several times a week, visiting every Sunday for dinner, making sure I was okay after his father died. He'd never married, said he was too focused on his career as a financial advisor to settle down, and I had accepted that even though I'd secretly hoped for grandchildren someday. Then, 2 years ago, Peter met Caroline at a business conference, and everything changed in ways I didn't recognize as dangerous until it was almost too late. Caroline was 38 years old, 12 years younger than Peter, beautiful in that polished way that comes from expensive salons and designer clothes, and she worked in commercial real estate making, as she frequently mentioned, a very comfortable 6-figure income. When Peter first introduced her to me, she was charming and attentive, complimenting my home, asking about my life, seeming genuinely interested in getting to know me. She'd been married once before, no children, and she said her ex-husband had been controlling and that she'd finally escaped that toxic relationship and was grateful to have found Peter, a genuinely good man. They dated for 6 months before Peter proposed, and honestly, I had some concerns even then. Something about Caroline felt performative, like she was playing a role rather than being authentic, but I dismissed those feelings as jealousy or overprotectiveness. I told myself I should be happy that Peter had found someone, that he wouldn't be alone, that maybe I'd get those grandchildren after all. So when Peter asked for my blessing, I gave it, and I helped plan their wedding, and I smiled through the ceremony, even though something in my gut kept whispering that something wasn't right. The first year of their marriage seemed fine. Caroline was pleasant enough when we saw each other at family gatherings, though I noticed she always seemed to be steering Peter away from spending too much time with me, always had some excuse for why they needed to leave early or couldn't come for Sunday dinners anymore. Peter started calling me less frequently, started seeming distracted when we did talk, and when I mentioned it to him, he said he was just busy with work and adjusting to married life. Then, about 10 months ago, I had a bad fall in my house. I was carrying laundry down to the basement and I missed a step and tumbled down the stairs, breaking my wrist and bruising my ribs badly. Peter rushed me to the emergency room, and while I was being treated, I overheard him and Caroline talking in the hallway outside my room. Caroline was saying, "Peter, this is exactly what I've been worried about. Your mother is getting too old to live alone in that big house. She's going to hurt herself seriously. We need to consider other options." Peter said, "What options? She loves that house. It's her home." And Caroline replied, "I know, but we have to think about her safety. And honestly, if something terrible happened and we hadn't intervened, we'd never forgive ourselves." At the time, I thought Caroline was being caring, concerned about my well-being, and I appreciated that she was looking out for me. When they came back into my room, Caroline took my good hand and said, "Helen, I know you love your independence, but Peter and I have been talking, and we think it would be good if we checked in on you more often. Maybe I could come by a few times a week to help around the house, make sure you're eating properly, help you with anything you need." She smiled so warmly, seemed so genuine. And I was lonely and hurting, and I said, "Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much for caring." That's when it started, though I didn't know it then. Caroline began coming to my house 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. She'd bring groceries, cook meals for me, clean the house, organize my medications, and spend hours just sitting and talking with me. She'd ask about my life, about Robert, about my years teaching elementary school, and she'd share stories about her own childhood, about growing up poor in rural Mississippi, about her difficult relationship with her alcoholic mother, about how hard she'd worked to build a successful career. I started to feel guilty for my initial concerns about her, started to think maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe she really was a good person who genuinely cared about me. But then, small, strange things started happening. I'd feel nauseous after eating the meals Caroline brought, stomach cramps that would last for hours. I'd feel dizzy and weak, sometimes so tired I could barely get out of bed. I went to my doctor and he ran some tests but couldn't find anything specific, said it was probably just age catching up with me, that I should rest more and eat better. Caroline was so sympathetic when I told her, said she'd make sure to bring me nutrient-rich foods, bone broths and vitamin supplements, and special teas that she said would help boost my immune system. The symptoms got worse instead of better. I started having trouble sleeping. My hair started falling out in clumps. I'd have episodes where my heart would race and I'd feel like I couldn't breathe. I lost 20 pounds in 2 months. My hands trembled constantly, and I developed painful sores in my mouth that made eating difficult. I went to my doctor multiple times, saw specialists, had test after test, but no one could figure out what was wrong with me. They threw around words like age-related decline and perhaps early dementia and failure to thrive, and I started to believe that maybe I was just dying, that my body was giving up. Caroline was there through all of it, so caring, so attentive, always with a concerned expression and helpful suggestions. She started managing all my medications because I was getting confused about which pills to take when. She said it was easier if she organized everything in daily pill containers for me. She started bringing all my meals because I was too weak to cook, and she'd sit with me while I ate to make sure I finished everything. She started doing all my grocery shopping and banking because I was too tired to leave the house. And slowly, methodically, without me realizing it, she took control of every aspect of my life. Peter would come to visit and he'd be shocked by how much I'd deteriorated. And I'd hear him and Caroline talking in hushed voices. Caroline saying things like, "I'm so worried about her. She's declining so fast. I don't know how much longer she can live alone like this." Peter would ask if I needed to go back to the doctor, and Caroline would say, "She's been to every specialist. They can't find anything wrong," as if it was my fault I wasn't getting better. Specialist, they can't find anything wrong. I think this is just what happens at her age. We need to prepare ourselves. About 5 months into this nightmare, Caroline brought up the idea of me moving into a nursing home. She sat me down one afternoon with Peter and said, "Helen, we love you so much, but I think it's time to consider assisted living. You need round-the-clock care that we can't provide. And there are wonderful facilities where you'd be safe and looked after properly." I panicked at the idea, said I wasn't ready, that I wanted to stay in my home, and Peter supported me, said, "Mom's not that far gone. We can manage for now." Caroline looked frustrated, but she backed off, said, "Okay, we'll table the discussion for now, but we need to keep evaluating the situation." A month after that conversation, Caroline started talking about my will. She'd say things like, "Helen, have you thought about your estate planning? It's important to make sure everything is in order, just in case." I told her I had a will, that everything went to Peter. And she said, "That's good, but have you considered the tax implications? Peter and I have been talking to a financial advisor, and there might be better ways to structure your estate that would save on taxes and ensure your wishes are carried out." She kept pushing, kept bringing it up. And finally, I agreed to meet with her financial advisor friend. The advisor was smooth and professional, and he suggested I consider adding Caroline as a joint owner on my house. Said it would make the transfer easier when I passed and would avoid probate. Something about it felt wrong, but I was so tired, so confused, my brain so foggy all the time. And Caroline kept saying, "Helen, we just want to help. We want to make things easier for everyone. And this way, Peter won't have to deal with complicated legal processes when he's grieving." I was about to sign the papers when Peter came home early from work and saw what was happening. Peter looked at the documents and said, "Mom, wait, why are you adding Caroline to the deed? The house should just go to me through your will." Caroline jumped in quickly. "Honey, we discussed this. It's just cleaner this way, and it's not like it matters. We're married. What's mine is yours anyway." But Peter looked uncomfortable, and he said, "Mom, don't sign anything right now. Let me review these documents first. Let's make sure we understand everything." Caroline was furious after that, though she tried to hide it. She made some excuse about needing to leave, and after she left, Peter and I talked. He said, "Mom, I didn't know Caroline was pushing you to change your estate planning. That doesn't seem right. Why wouldn't she discuss this with me first?" And that's when I started to wonder, really wonder, if Caroline's motives were as pure as I'd been believing. But I still didn't suspect poisoning. I still thought I was just sick, that my body was failing, that I was dying of natural causes. Until 3 weeks ago, when I collapsed in my bathroom and Peter rushed me to the emergency room. My blood pressure was dangerously low. My organs were starting to fail, and the doctors admitted me and started running every test imaginable, trying to figure out what was killing me. Caroline came to the hospital every day, bringing me special smoothies she'd made, saying they'd help me regain my strength. She'd fuss over me, fluff my pillows, adjust my blankets, played the perfect devoted daughter-in-law. But one day, I wasn't awake when she came. I was dozing from pain medication, and I heard her talking to someone on the phone in the hallway. She said, "Yes, it's taking longer than expected. She's tougher than she looks, but the doctors can't figure it out, so they're just treating symptoms. It shouldn't be much longer now." And then she laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Trust me, once she's gone, everything will be so much easier. The house alone is worth almost $1 million. I felt ice run through my veins. I kept my eyes closed, kept pretending to sleep, and when Caroline came back in the room, she leaned over me and whispered, "Just let go, Helen. Stop fighting. It's time." And there was something so cold in her voice that I finally understood. She wasn't taking care of me. She was killing me. But I didn't know how. I didn't know what she was doing or how to prove it or how to make anyone believe me. I tried to tell Peter my suspicions, but I was so weak and confused, and he thought I was hallucinating from medication. I tried refusing Caroline's food, but she'd get upset and call the nurses, and they'd encourage me to eat because I was so malnourished. I felt trapped and terrified, and I was fading fast, and I honestly thought I was going to die without anyone ever knowing the truth. Then one of the nurses, a young woman named Anna, noticed something. She saw Caroline putting something in my water cup when she thought no one was looking. She didn't say anything to Caroline, just took the cup away saying she'd get me fresh water. And she brought that cup to the head nurse. They tested the water and found a white powder residue, and that's when they called the doctor, and the doctor ordered toxicology tests, and that's how they found the arsenic. When the doctor told me someone had been poisoning me, I immediately said, "Caroline, my daughter-in-law, she brings me food, she manages my medications, she's the only one with constant access to everything I consume." The police were called. They searched Caroline's purse and found a small vial of arsenic hidden in a makeup compact. They went to my house with a warrant and found arsenic residue in the pill containers Caroline had organized, in the special tea she'd been making me, even in the smoothie cups she'd brought to the hospital.
Caroline was arrested at her office, and according to the detective who interviewed me later, she denied everything at first, said I was confused and senile and making false accusations. But when confronted with the physical evidence, she finally broke down and confessed. She said she'd never loved Peter, had only married him after researching his background and realizing his mother owned valuable property. She said her plan all along was to become indispensable to me, gain my trust, slowly poison me to make it look like natural age-related decline, and either get me to sign over the house before I died or inherit it through Peter after I was gone. She said once she had the house, she was planning to divorce Peter and walk away with at least half its value in the settlement. The detective said Caroline had done this before. Her first husband hadn't divorced her because he was controlling. He'd divorced her after discovering she'd been stealing from their elderly parents. There'd been suspicions, but never enough evidence to prosecute. Caroline was a predator who targeted families with elderly members and valuable assets, and I'd been her latest mark. And I'd been so desperate for connection, so grateful for her attention, that I'd walked right into her trap. Peter was devastated. He kept apologizing, saying he should have seen it, should have protected me, should have questioned why I was declining so rapidly. But how could he have known? Caroline had been so careful, so calculating, so good at playing the devoted wife and loving daughter-in-law. She'd fooled everyone, the doctors who couldn't diagnose me, the nurses who thought she was wonderful, even Peter, who trusted her completely. I spent 2 more weeks in the hospital while they treated the arsenic poisoning and helped my body recover. The doctor said I was lucky Anna had been observant, that another few weeks of exposure probably would have killed me. I'd come so close to death, hours or days away, and I had no idea. I thought I was dying of old age when really I was being murdered in slow motion by someone who'd calculated that my life was worth less than my property. Caroline is now in jail, awaiting trial. The prosecutor says with the physical evidence and her confession, she'll likely get 25 years to life for attempted murder. Peter has filed for divorce, and he's in therapy trying to process the trauma of realizing he was married to someone who tried to kill his mother for money. The house is still mine, and I'm recovering slowly, my hair growing back, my strength returning, my mind clearing now that I'm not being systematically poisoned.
But the emotional damage is harder to heal than the physical damage. I trusted Caroline. I welcomed her into my life, into my home, into my family. I was lonely and vulnerable, and I thought she cared about me, when really, she was just waiting for me to die. How do you recover from that kind of betrayal? How do you ever trust anyone again when someone who smiled at you every day, who cooked for you and cleaned for you and sat with you for hours, was actually slowly killing you? I've learned some hard lessons through this nightmare. I've learned that being lonely doesn't mean you should accept anyone into your life without question. I've learned that when something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate why, you should trust that instinct. I've learned that predators are often charming and helpful because that's how they gain access to their victims. I've learned that elder abuse is real and common and often goes undetected because people dismiss symptoms as normal aging rather than investigating whether something more sinister is happening. Most importantly, I've learned that I need to advocate for myself, to speak up when something doesn't feel right, to ask questions and demand answers, to not just accept decline as inevitable. If I hadn't overheard that phone call, if Anna hadn't been paying attention, I'd be dead right now. And everyone would have thought I died of natural causes. And Caroline would have gotten away with murder and probably would have moved on to her next victim. I think about other elderly people out there who might be in similar situations, who might be declining rapidly and no one's questioning why, who might have someone in their life who's a little too helpful, a little too eager to take control, a little too interested in their assets. How many of them are being slowly poisoned or financially exploited or emotionally abused by people they trust? How many of them will die without anyone ever knowing the truth? That's why I'm sharing my story, even though it's humiliating to admit I was fooled, even though it's painful to relive what happened. I want other elderly people to be aware, to be cautious, to pay attention to warning signs. I want family members to watch out for their aging parents and grandparents, to question rapid decline, to be suspicious of new people who suddenly become indispensable, to
to review financial documents and check for unusual changes. Peter and I are rebuilding our relationship, trying to find our way back to what we had before Caroline came between us. He's racked with guilt, keeps saying he should have protected me better, but I tell him that Caroline fooled both of us, that she was a professional predator, and we were just her unlucky targets. We go to therapy together once a week, working through the trauma, learning to trust again, figuring out how to move forward. I'm still living in my house, the house Robert and I built our life in, the house Caroline tried to steal from me. But it doesn't feel the same anymore. Every room is tainted with memories of Caroline's visits, of the meals she brought that were slowly killing me, of the pills she organized that were laced with poison, of the conversations we had where she pretended to care while secretly calculating how long until I died. I'm thinking about selling it, starting fresh somewhere new, somewhere without ghosts of betrayal and attempted murder. But I'm alive. Against all odds, despite Caroline's careful planning and months of systematic poisoning, I'm alive. I'm recovering. I'm getting stronger every day. And I'm determined to use however many years I have left to warn others, to share my story, to hopefully prevent someone else from falling victim to the same kind of predator. There are Carolines out there in the world, charming and helpful and calculating, looking for vulnerable elderly people they can exploit and eliminate. They bank on the fact that elderly deaths are rarely investigated closely, that symptoms of poisoning can be mistaken for normal aging, that families trust spouses and caretakers and don't ask hard questions until it's too late. But if we're aware, if we're vigilant, if we pay attention and advocate for our elderly loved ones, we can stop them. I was one of the lucky ones. Lucky that Anna was observant. Lucky that the doctors finally thought to test for toxins. Lucky that there was enough evidence to prove what Caroline was doing. But not everyone is that lucky. Not everyone survives. Not everyone gets justice. And that breaks my heart for all the elderly victims who died never knowing they were murdered, whose families never knew the truth, whose killers got away with it and moved on to the next victim. So please, if you're listening to this and you have elderly parents or grandparents or loved ones, pay attention to them. Visit them regularly. Know what's happening in their lives. Meet the people who are helping them. Question rapid decline. Review their finances and legal documents. Ask hard questions even when it feels uncomfortable. Be the advocate they need, because as we age, we become vulnerable in ways we never expected. And predators know that and exploit it. And if you're elderly and listening to this, please be cautious about who you let into your life. Loneliness is painful, but being murdered is worse. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, speak up. Ask questions. Don't sign documents without having someone you trust review them. Don't let anyone take total control of your medications or finances or legal affairs. Maintain your independence as much as possible, because independence is protection. I almost died because I was lonely and trusting and desperate for family connection. Don't make my mistake. Caroline seemed perfect, but she was a predator, and I nearly paid for my blindness with my life. Thank you for listening to my story, for bearing witness to what happened to me, and for hopefully taking these warnings to heart. If this story made you think about the elderly people in your life, if it made you want to check in on your parents or grandparents, if it made you aware of the dangers of elder abuse, then please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts or your own experiences. Subscribe to this channel to hear more real stories about the dangers people face and how to protect yourself and your loved ones. Give this video a like if you found it valuable and eye-opening. And please, please share this story widely, because somewhere out there is another elderly person being slowly poisoned by someone they trust. And maybe, just maybe, this story could save their life like Anna's observations saved mine. Thank you for listening to my story, and please stay safe and stay vigilant.